Well, this budget's quite interesting because we had a reasonably favourable one back in March under the previous government, and so there's quite a few things that we very much hope this government will pick up and carry forward, and we do actually think they were of a relatively apolitical nature. So we're really very hopeful that the new government will pick up the issue of scrip dividends for REITs. This is this whole business of being able to issue stock, issue shares, instead of actually paying out cash dividend to shareholders. That would be very, very helpful for the REIT industry. Previous governments said they'd do it. We hope this one will pick it up. We're also very hopeful that this government will pick up on the progress that are being made on tax increment finance, as a means of actually getting regeneration schemes going, because that allows funding of the infrastructure. So we hope there will at least be some positive noises about that we can then build on and work with the new government to look at how we might put it into practice. I think it's also very, very helpful if the new government makes some comment about how they might use fiscal measures to support sustainability. That's something where we've been heavily engaged with Treasury in the past on looking at how you might actually do that. And then, of course, the one we would really like is what Vince Cable said he would do when he was in opposition, which is actually to restore some or all of the empty property relief, which I think would make a huge difference for confidence generally in both our industry and its customer markets.
The real issue for the property industry is not going to be the direct impact of tax changes on property funds and property companies. The two overwhelming concerns of the real estate industry should be what happens to my tenants, what happens to interest rates. And therefore we know that taxes are going to rise, we know that expenditure is going to be cut, but we don't know who's going to bear the brunt of that.
I doubt very much there's any good news for tomorrow. Although there's a reduction expected in the corporation tax rates, which most people would be delighted with, they're expecting to pay for that through changes in the capital allowances rates. So on the basis that a lot of property investors actually have advantages from claiming capital allowances, they might not be quite as well off as they would hope. I think there is also speculation about VAT rates going up. That's pretty standard and seems to be speculated at every budget and pre-budget that I've been involved with. 20% seems to be the figure that's doing the rounds, but I wait to see whether they'll actually go that far tomorrow.
What might appear in the budget that the property sector is worried about?
Well, there's been quite a lot of sort of rumour and I suspect sort of misinformation about the sorts of things that the new government is actually looking at. The suggestion to increase CGT, which would very much affect the sort of buy-to-let residential property market, is something that certainly we would very much prefer not to see pursued in the budget, because again we think this will have a dampener on the market, especially as we're trying to sort of build up the concept of the private rented sector. So please, Mr. Chancellor, don't actually go there on that one.
Well, fundamentally, the health of the property market in general depends on demand for commercial property and the ability of tenants to pay the rent. And basically, that's related to the overall health of the economy. A concern would be that the government embarks on really trying to do too much too quickly in terms of correcting the deficit and squeezes too hard and too fast. I think there is a real danger of excessive austerity, if you like, particularly in the context when so many other European economies are also simultaneously embarking now on quite strong fiscal retrenchments. So this does need to be a phased approach, a careful approach in some respects. We know the deficit has got to be reduced, but this is a 4 or 5 year job. Let's not try and do too much too fast. There is a danger that you could have a damaging impact with a pretty fragile recovery still in place. So phasing steady as she goes. There's no real need for panic, alarm and bold dramatic measures here. It does need a careful, considered, measured approach in terms of working our way out of the situation.
What markets don't like is uncertainty, and what a budget always does is bring uncertainty, and at least once we know where we stand tomorrow we can start working within the rules as we know they're going to come through. But the detail, as always, will be in the fine print, so whatever they stand up and say, whatever the Chancellor says in the House, just wait till you see the fine print that comes out when he sits down, and then we can tell you what's really going on in the budget.